Well, my observations on music, at least being a musician, and I kind of have a negative view on music and musicians. Ain't that weird? That's kind of weird. It is kind of weird. But I'll explain why. At least I'll try to. For those of you who aren't musicians, you might have pretty good opinions of musicians, especially when you're young. You know, when you're young, you tend to idolize musicians, and music is so important. And some people get old and it's still important. That's good. As a musician, I can appreciate people liking music. So what is it about this negative idea or viewpoint I have on music and musicians? Well, it's a lot of times because people idolize musicians, they don't tend to see the reality. The reality of who is a musician. I mean, what kind of person. They're idolizing the musician over their music, and a musician can be like a total scumbag. One thing I noticed about some musicians, now I'm not pointing a finger at any of my friends here on YouTube, you know, so don't start thinking you're talking about me. You talking about me? I ain't talking about you. My musician friends on YouTube are just great people. So I'm talking about in real life, and there may be some people on YouTube that fit into this category of kind of being not so cool. But musicians, so many of them, well, they get big heads. Their ego takes over. Sometimes it's based on their talent. They can be really hot musicians. Sometimes the musicians stink, and they think because they're a musician, you know, they're better than other people. Through my life, having dealt with musicians, at least the ones that I've dealt with, I find them to be selfish, egotistical, you know, whether they're talented or not. And I've known some pretty good players, but talk about selfish. You know, I've tried to play with people in the past that were just so selfish. You know, it's say you put a band together, especially if you put a band together, you might get into a band. It's a different situation, but if you're putting a band together and say it's yourself and someone else, and you start hashing through what songs you're going to do, and you find the person that you're forming the band with wants to play all the songs he picks and like nothing that you pick. Or I should say myself. This has happened to me on numerous occasions. It's like I try to pick their mind. What would you like to do? What would you like to do? Trying to set a feeling for the future. I'm interested in what you want to do. And then I just kind of wait to hear the same from them. And, you know, as long as you're petting their ego, you know, as long as you're doing what they would like you to do, then everything's fine. But when you look back on the situation, it's like, well, you know what? You picked 20 songs you'd like to do. I picked 10 songs I'd like to do. We're playing your 20 songs, and we're playing 0 of mine, or one of the ones that I picked. So that has left a bad taste in my mouth towards many of the musicians I've met. And this has not happened on one occasion, but I can think of the last band I went to get in. it was pretty much forming from the ground up, but had guys in it already. And basically, we practiced at the bass player's house, and he was the guy that was going to pick every song. You know, he didn't want to hear any suggestions from anyone else. Well, I didn't like that, so I went and bagged it. It's like, I ain't hanging around with this situation. Prior to that, I was in a band. We did one song I wanted to do. In fact, I go back to the first band I was in. We did one song that I suggested, and I was with that band 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years and one song. Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads. I was overjoyed. We're actually doing a song that I picked. It was a great tune. And I can think back, even before my first band, you got bands kids put together, just jamming and stuff. And it's like, people walk all over you. I've gotten to the point where it's like, I'm not going to play with anybody. And you know what? I don't miss it. So that's why I do things in my own studio. I make music. I pick what I want to do and I make music. And it's been fun to share it on YouTube. I think that's one of the reasons that I've done so many different types of music and my own originals, some of them. But it's a nice feeling to share what I'd like to share instead of having somebody nix it out on me. Oh, no, we ain't going to do that. Now, I know there's musicians that aren't like this. There's been bands where they share. You can see it on their CDs. This song was written by this band member. This other song was written by this other band member. And it'd be really nice in real life to find people like that where, it's not a battle, it's not a struggle to try to be included in what the songs are going to be. So that's one of the reasons I got a bad taste in my mouth from working with musicians. They got big egos. They know what's best. They know what everyone wants to hear. And, they can't imagine that something someone else would like to do would be enjoyed by people. Like they know everything and you know nothing. So, there you have it. That's our rant on musicians. At least the ones I've worked with. Alright. See you later.